Okay, let's be honest. When you think of the 16th century theologian John Calvin, words like joy or delight probably don't pop into your head. But what if I told you he actually wrote this surprisingly modern, really practical guide to living a good, balanced, and, yes, enjoyable life? So today, let's dive into this 500-year-old wisdom on how to navigate all the world's pleasures without completely losing your way. So here's our game plan. We're going to break this down into 5 parts. We'll start with the central problem Calvin saw, this slippery slope. Then we'll look at the 2 big extremes he warned us about before we get to his brilliant solution, a middle path. And it's all held together by this powerful idea of a divine calling.
At the heart of all this is a question that we still wrestle with every single day. Can we actually enjoy the good things in life, good food, beauty, comfort, and still be good people? Is it one or the other? Do we really have to choose between pleasure and piety? Well, Calvin's answer might just surprise you. Okay, let's start with the problem. Calvin saw the path of life as, well, a really slippery one. He said it slopes on both sides into error. He even called it a double danger, meaning there are 2 equally bad ways to approach all the good things that life has to offer.
And this slide just lays out those 2 ditches perfectly. On the one hand, you've got what Calvin called mistaken strictness. This is the idea that to be good, you have to reject all pleasure and basically become an unfeeling block. But on the other side, you've got mistaken laxity, where you just give in to every single desire, what he so vividly calls the lust of the flesh, which overflows without measure.
So let's dig into that first danger, total abstinence. This is the whole idea that any enjoyment that goes beyond just bare necessity is somehow sinful. And wow, Calvin had some incredibly strong words for this way of thinking. I mean, just listen to that. He calls it an inhuman philosophy. He's not arguing for holiness here. He's saying that this path literally strips away our very humanity. It robs us of our senses and makes us less than what we were created to be.
Right. So the key takeaway for Calvin was that this kind of severe self-denial isn't pious. It's actually a dangerous trap. It puts rules on people that are way stricter than what God actually requires, and it reduces life to just bread and water, completely ignoring all the beauty and delight that's woven right into creation. All right, so now let's swing over to the other side of that slippery slope, the extreme of total indulgence. This is where the idea of freedom gets all twisted up and becomes an excuse for just unchecked consumption and pleasure seeking. And for Calvin, this was every bit as dangerous as total abstinence. And he was super specific about the consequences. He warned that if you overindulge, it actually infects your mind. It leads to pride, it makes you useless for your duties, and eventually you get so obsessed with material splendor that you literally lose the ability to perceive anything spiritual at all. Okay, so if total denial is wrong and total indulgence is wrong, what's the right way to live? Well, this brings us to the real heart of Calvin's teaching, a balanced, grateful middle path that completely reframes our relationship with the world. And here it is. This is the foundational principle. It's so simple, but it is so profound. The good things in this world, food, beauty, nature, they were created by God for our benefit, for our good. They're meant to be gifts, not traps. Their whole purpose is to help us, not to ruin us. I mean, think about it. Calvin argues that if God only cared about necessity, the world would look totally different. Why are flowers beautiful? Why do they have these amazing smells? He says these things exist not just for function, but for our delight and good cheer. Enjoyment, from this point of view, is actually part of the design. So to help us actually stay on this middle path, Calvin gives us 3 really practical guardrails for the journey. Let's break them down. Let's unpack these real quick. First, thankfulness. This is what keeps us grounded, focused on where the gifts come from, and it stops indulgence from making us useless. Second, we have to remember eternity. That perspective helps us hold things lightly, to use the world, as he says, as if not using it. And third, stewardship. This is the game changer, understanding that we're just managers, not owners, and one day we'll have to give an account for how we use these gifts. And all of this brings us to the final piece that ties everything together. To truly live this balanced life, Calvin says we have to understand our calling. It's a concept that gives our entire life a sense of structure and purpose. Look at this definition. I love this. A calling is a sentry post. It's like a specific role, a set of duties that have been assigned to you. So why is this so important?
Because, as Calvin points out, our human nature is just restless and ambitious. Without a post to stand at, we just heedlessly wander about, chasing one thing after another. A calling gives us a place to stand our ground. And the practical benefits here are just huge. Knowing your post keeps you from recklessly trying to do and be everything. It provides, as he puts it, no slight relief from cares, because you actually know what you're supposed to be doing. Your work, your family, your community, it all starts to line up toward a single, unified purpose. And this might be the most powerful and encouraging idea in this whole thing. When you are living out your calling, no job is meaningless. It doesn't matter if you're a leader or a housekeeper, a farmer or an artist. Your work isn't judged by what humans think is prestigious. In God's eyes, if it's your calling, that task will shine and be reckoned very precious. So we'll end with this question for today. We live in a world that tells us we can be anything, right? And that often leads to this massive anxiety, this feeling of being totally adrift. But what if Calvin's 500-year-old idea is actually the key to enjoying life? What if having a post, a purpose, a calling is the very thing that allows us to properly receive the world's gifts, not as random things to be consumed, but as tools and delights to be used for our specific mission? Maybe real freedom isn't endless choice after all. Maybe it's a calling.